The big room was very quiet, too quiet for a place that usually had hundreds of different voices talking at once. The Galactic Council chamber was huge, with walls made of crystal that reached up so high they seemed to touch the stars. But today, all those voices were silent. Taemin stood in the center of the room. He was not a tall man, but he stood straight. His gray hair was neat, and his hands were folded behind his back. He wore the simple blue uniform that all Earth ambassadors wore. Nothing fancy, nothing to show off, just blue cloth with a small Earth patch on the shoulder. Around him sat the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The Vextar were like giant lizards with scales that changed color when they were upset. Right now, their scales were a worried green. The Luminari looked like living light, floating in special containers filled with gas. Their glow was dim today, which meant they were not happy. Behind Taemin stood 3 other humans. Dr. Hyejin held a tablet in her hands. The tablet was full of papers, hundreds of them. Each paper was an idea that humans had given to the council. Ideas for better medicine, ideas for growing more food, ideas for making space travel safer. All of these ideas had been pushed away by the council. They called human ideas too simple or too dangerous or not good enough. Captain Dongwu stood next to her. He was in charge of Earth's spaceships. His face showed no feelings, but his hands were tight fists. He had spent 20 years trying to work with alien space fleets. 20 years of being told that human ships were too slow, too small, too weak. The 3rd human was so young. She was an engineer who built things, big things, space stations, jump gates that let ships travel between stars, mining platforms that dug metals from dead planets. The aliens used all these things every day, but they always said humans were not smart enough to build them properly. Taemin looked around the room. His eyes moved slowly from one alien face to another. Some looked away. Some stared back. Some pretended to be busy with their computers. "We came here 50 years ago," Taemin said. His voice was not loud, but it carried to every corner of the big room. "We came with open hands. We wanted to be friends. We wanted to learn from you. We wanted to share what we knew." A council member made a small noise. It was Counselor Meltaran from the Void Swimmers. They looked like big jellyfish made of metal. Meltaran's tentacles moved in a way that meant disagreement. "We brought you our best," Taemin continued. "Our scientists shared their discoveries. Our doctors shared their healing methods. Our farmers shared ways to grow food on worlds where nothing should grow." Dr. Hyejin's tablet beeped softly. She looked down at it and shook her head. Another human request had just been denied. The 2047th request in 50 years. They were all denied. "We asked to join your trade routes," Taemin said. "You said our ships were too primitive. We asked to help with medical research. You said our methods were too crude. We asked to share our art and music. You said it was too emotional." Captain Dongwu remembered the last time he had offered help. 3 months ago, pirates had attacked a convoy of crystalline ships. Human patrol vessels had been nearby. They could have helped in minutes, but the council said no. They said humans should not interfere. 17 crystalline traders died while human ships sat and watched, forbidden to help. We offered to help build better weather control systems, Taman went on. You said it was impossible. We offered to help solve the food problems on Kepler Station. You said we did not understand alien biology. We offered to help design better schools for young aliens. You said human teaching methods were too aggressive. So Young looked at her own tablet. It showed a list of all the things she had built in Council space. Atmospheric processors that kept 43 worlds breathable, jump gates that connected 37 star systems, space elevators that made it cheap to get goods up and down from planets. The Council used all of these things, but they never said thank you. They just complained when something needed fixing. For 50 years we have been patient, Taemin said. We thought that if we proved ourselves, you would accept us. We thought that if we helped enough, you would see us as equals. We thought that if we were polite and quiet and did not cause trouble, you would eventually trust us. The silence in the room grew heavier. Some aliens shifted in their seats. The air felt thick, like before a big storm. We were wrong, Taemin said simply. Those 3 words hit the council like a physical blow. Several aliens made shocked noises. Others leaned forward as if they had not heard correctly. You do not want partners, Taemin continued. You want servants. You do not want equals. You want people who will do the hard work while you take the credit. You do not want friends. You want someone to blame when things go wrong. Dr. Hae-jin remembered all the times she had stayed up all night working on medical problems for alien species. She had saved millions of lives, but the credit always went to alien doctors who signed their names to her work. So we are leaving, Taemin said. His voice was still calm. No anger, no sadness. Just a simple statement of fact. All humans are leaving Council space. We will take our ships, our research, our people, and our hope for friendship, and we will go! The council chamber erupted. Aliens jumped to their feet, making loud noises in dozens of different languages. Translators worked overtime trying to keep up with all the shouting. You cannot! Screeched Counselor Vextar. Your contracts! Your obligations! Our contracts were broken long ago, Taemin replied. By you, every time you rejected our help, every time you insulted our efforts, every time you treated us like children who should be grateful for scraps. Where will you go? Asked the Luminari representative. Their light was flickering with worry. Away, Taemin said. Far enough away that we cannot bother you anymore. Captain, Dongwu stepped forward. All human military vessels will leave Council space within 6 months. All trade agreements are void. All research partnerships are ended. All construction projects will be completed and then abandoned. Dr. Hae-jin spoke next. All medical research will be archived and left with the Council. All agricultural programs will be transferred to local authorities. All educational exchanges are terminated. So Young was last. All maintenance contracts are canceled. All construction projects will shut down. All technical support will end. The aliens stared at them. Some looked confused. Others looked angry. A few looked scared. "You are making a mistake," said Counselor Thexani of the Klaxons. "You need us more than we need you." Tamin smiled sadly. "Perhaps. We will find out." "This is blackmail," shouted another council member. "No," Tamin said. "Blackmail would be threatening to hurt you if you do not give us what we want. We are not threatening anything. We are simply leaving. You have made it clear that you do not want us here, so we are going." But what about all the projects?" asked a small voice from the back of the room. It was Counselor Zethara from the Archive Collective. They looked like walking trees made of silver metal. "You will figure it out," Dr. Hai Jin said gently. "You are all very smart, much smarter than us, as you have told us many times. I am sure you will do fine without our simple, crude, primitive help." The four humans turned and walked toward the big doors at the back of the chamber. Their footsteps echoed in the sudden quiet. No one tried to stop them. No one called out for them to wait. At the door, Tamin turned back one last time. "We do not hate you," he said. "We are not angry. We are just disappointed. We thought the galaxy was big enough for friendship. We were wrong." The doors closed behind them with a soft whoosh of air. The council sat in silence, staring at the empty space where the humans had stood. Outside, the four humans walked down the long hallway toward the docking bay where their ship waited. Other humans were already there, packing up 50 years of hopes and dreams and putting them in boxes. "Do you think they will try to stop us?" asked. "So young." "No," said Tamin. "They are too proud. They will convince themselves that they are better off without us." "Maybe they are," said Captain Dongwu. "Maybe," agreed Tamin. "But I doubt it." Behind them, in the council chamber, the aliens sat in shocked silence. The reality of what had just happened was starting to sink in. The humans were really leaving. After 50 years of being the galaxy's most helpful, most patient, most generous members, they were walking away. And for the first time in 50 years, the council had nothing to say. 6 months had passed since the humans announced they were leaving. At first, many aliens thought it was just angry talk. Humans had always been so helpful before. Surely they would change their minds and come back. They were wrong. Captain Dongwu stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the last human transport leave Kepler Station. The station was one of the biggest in council space. It had shops, schools, hospitals, and homes for over 2 million aliens. It also had something else. It depended on human-built systems to keep working. "All personnel have been evacuated from the agricultural sector," reported Lieutenant J. Ho through the communication system. He was in charge of moving all the human farmers and their families. "The alien workers want to know how to operate the hydroponic systems." "Send them the instruction manuals," Dongwu replied. "All of them. Make sure they understand we will not be available for questions after today." Down on the station, Minho was shutting down the atmospheric processors he had built 12 years ago. These machines cleaned the air and kept the right mix of gases for all the different alien species who lived on the station. The work was careful and slow. If he made a mistake, people could die. "Sir," said his assistant, a young human woman named Hae Jung. The station manager is here. He wants to talk to you. The station manager was a Zephyrian named Keltoth. Zephyrians looked like tall birds with 4 arms and feathers that changed color with their moods. Right now, Keltoth's feathers were bright yellow with worry. Min-ho, Keltoth said, his voice making the clicking sounds that all Zephyrians made when they were upset. You cannot leave. The station needs these machines. We do not know how to fix them if they break. Min-ho did not look up from his work. I gave you the technical manuals 3 months ago. I offered to train your engineers. You said human technology was too simple for Zephyrian minds to waste time learning. That was different. Keltoth's feathers turned orange with embarrassment. We thought you would always be here to maintain them. I was never supposed to be here forever, Min-ho said quietly. These machines were supposed to be a gift, something to help you build a better station. But you treated them like they belonged to you, and me like I was your servant. Keltoth's feathers went white with fear. But what if something goes wrong? What if we cannot figure out how to fix them? Min-ho finally looked up. His face was not angry, just tired. Then you will learn, or you will build new ones, or you will ask one of the other council species for help. You have many options that do not include keeping humans as your personal repair service. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening on hundreds of worlds. Dr. Hae Jin was on Nexus Prime, packing up her medical research. She had been working on a cure for Zephyrian bone rot, a disease that killed thousands of Zephyrians every year. The research was 90% complete. Doctor, please, begged Dr. Silwenda, a healer caste alien who looked like a walking flower made of crystal. Just finish the research. So many will die without the cure. Hae Jin carefully put her research notes into a sealed container. The Council Medical Board rejected my funding request last month. They said the research was unnecessary human meddling in alien biology. I offered to share all my findings. They said human medical techniques were too primitive to be useful. But the disease is getting worse. Silwenda's crystalline petals were trembling. The infection rate has doubled this year. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you rejected my help, Hyejin said. Her voice was not mean, just sad. I spent 8 years on this research. 8 years of my life trying to help people who did not want my help. I am done. She handed Silwenda a data chip. This contains everything I have learned so far. Maybe your council scientists can finish what I started. They are much smarter than me, after all. On the other side of the galaxy, Engineer So Young was supervising the shutdown of the jump gate network that connected the Outer Rim territories to the main council systems. These gates let ships travel between stars in hours instead of years. Without them, the Outer Rim would be cut off from the rest of the galaxy. You cannot do this, said Counselor Brixtall of the Silicon Collective. They looked like a pile of living rocks with glowing crystals for eyes. The Outer Rim colonies depend on these gates for trade and supplies. The gates were built with human technology and maintained by human engineers, So Young replied, carefully removing control crystals from the gate mechanism. Since the Council has decided that human technology is inferior, I am sure you can build better gates with your superior alien engineering. But that will take years. Brixtal's crystals flashed red with anger. Decades! Then you should have started decades ago, So Young said, instead of depending on humans to do the work for you. The worst part for the aliens was how polite the humans were being. There was no anger, no threats, no violence. They just quietly packed up their things and left. They finished their current projects, handed over instruction manuals, and said goodbye. Some aliens had expected humans to sabotage things out of spite. Instead, humans made sure everything was working perfectly before they left. Merchant J-Ho was closing down his trading routes. His ships had carried goods between star systems for 30 years. He knew every space lane, every safe harbor, every trading post in Council space. His ships were small compared to the big alien freighters, but they went places that big ships could not go. Captain J-Ho, called Trader Vexcala, a void swimmer whose ship was as big as a small moon. We must discuss the rim route contracts. Your ships handle 70% of our small cargo deliveries. J-Ho was loading the last of his cargo onto his ship. The rim route is yours now. I am sure your big ships can handle small deliveries just fine. But our ships are too large for many of the docking ports. Vexcala's tentacles writhed with worry. And the small ports do not have the equipment to handle our cargo systems. Then you will need to find smaller ships, J-Ho said, simply. Or upgrade the ports, or find new routes. You have many choices. But it will cost millions of credits, Vexcala protested. Everything costs something, J-Ho replied. The question is what you are willing to pay for. On Earth's main colony, World New Sol, Administrator Yuri was organizing the biggest moving operation in human history. 12 million humans lived in Council space, scattered across hundreds of worlds. All of them were coming home. The transport ships are ready, reported Captain Shung Ho. We can move about 50,000 people per week. It will take 5 years. To evacuate everyone. The aliens are starting to panic, said Yuri, looking at reports from across the galaxy. Production is down 30% in sectors where humans made up most of the workforce. The Council is getting hundreds of emergency requests for help. What are they saying officially? Asked Shung Ho. Nothing, Yuri smiled sadly. They are still pretending that humans leaving is not a big problem. But the emergency requests tell a different story. The emergency requests were getting desperate. Alien governments were offering huge amounts of money for humans to stay. They promised better treatment, equal rights, full citizenship. But the humans had heard such promises before. On Titan Base, the last human military outpost in Council space, General Il-sung was shutting down operations. The base had been humanity's contribution to Council defense for 40 years. It protected shipping lanes from pirates and provided emergency rescue services for ships in trouble. General, said Admiral Quinthara of the Council Defense Force. She was a luminary, her light dim with worry. The pirate attacks have increased by 300% since you announced the base closure. We need your patrol ships. You told Us that human military tactics were too aggressive, Il-sung replied, watching his ships power down their weapons. You said human patrols made aliens feel unsafe. You banned us from responding to distress calls without council approval. That was a mistake, Quinthera admitted. We see that now. Yes, agreed Il-sung. It was a mistake. One of many. The council had made so many mistakes. They had taken humans for granted. They had assumed that humans would always be there, always willing to help, always patient with alien prejudice and pride. They had treated human generosity as weakness and human patience as stupidity. Now they were learning the truth. Humans had not been weak or stupid. They had been kind. And kindness, once lost, was very hard to get back. As the months passed, the effects of human departure became impossible to ignore. Food production dropped as alien farmers struggled to use human agricultural techniques. Transportation slowed as ships waited longer for cargo services. Rescue operations failed as emergency responders learned that humans had been handling 60% of all crisis response calls. But the worst part was the silence. Humans had always been the ones to speak up in council meetings, to ask uncomfortable questions, to point out problems that others ignored. Without them, the council meetings became echo chambers where aliens agreed with each other and pretended everything was fine. Dr. Hae-jin sent one last message before her ship left council space. It was addressed to the entire council medical board. We leave behind our research, our methods, and our hope that you will use them to help people. We do not ask for credit or recognition. We only ask that you remember. 3 years had passed since the last human ship disappeared beyond the edge of council space. At first, the aliens had been confident. They were smart, advanced beings. They could handle whatever problems came up without primitive human help. They were wrong. Counselor Thexani of the Klaxons stood in the emergency session chamber, her insect-like wings buzzing with stress. The report in her 4 hands was the worst yet. 17 star systems were facing complete infrastructure failure. The atmospheric processors on Kepler Station failed yesterday, she reported, her voice making the clicking sounds that Klaxons made when they were very upset. Backup systems lasted only 6 hours. We had to evacuate 200,000 beings. Around the table, other council members shifted uncomfortably. The Luminary representative, Nalthara, dimmed her light to almost nothing. She had spent 3 years trying to understand how human atmospheric processors worked. She had failed. I have studied the human designs, Nalthara said, her voice sounding like wind chimes in a storm. They appear simple, but they are not. Every part depends on every other part in ways that make no sense. When one piece breaks, the whole system fails. Counselor Vextar's scales turned a deep red color. Nonsense. Human technology was primitive. We should be able to improve on it easily. Then why have we not done so? Asked Thexani. It has been 3 years. Where are our improvements? Vextar had no answer. None of them did. On Nexus Prime, the medical crisis was getting worse. Dr. Silwenda stood in her laboratory, surrounded by failed experiments. She had Been trying to recreate Dr. Hygin's work on Zephyrian bone rot. The human's research notes were detailed and complete, but somehow, Silwenda could not make them work. The human used standard chemical compounds, she muttered to herself. Her crystal petals dim with exhaustion. Nothing special, nothing we do not have. But when I follow her exact steps, the medicine does not work. Her assistant, a young crystalline named Zix Mora, looked at the test results. Perhaps the human made mistakes in her notes? No, Silwenda said sadly. I thought that too at first, but I have checked her math dozens of times. Her chemistry is perfect. Her biological understanding is deeper than ours in some areas. The problem is not with her work. The problem is with us. The truth was becoming clear across the galaxy. Humans had not just been helpful members of galactic civilization. They had been holding it together. On the outer rim, entire colonies were facing starvation. The human agricultural systems had failed, and alien farmers could not figure out why. Weijun had been called a simple dirt farmer by the Council Agricultural Board, but his simple methods had fed 60% of the galaxy's population. Farm Administrator Melkoth was staring at fields of dead crops on New Harvest, a colony, world that should have been producing food for 12 systems. The soil was good. The weather was right. The seeds were the same ones that Wei Jun had used, but nothing would grow. I do not understand, Melkoth said to his chief scientist, Dr. Crestal. We are following the human procedures exactly. Are we? Asked Crestal. Look at this. She showed him a page from Wei Jun's notes. He says to add fertilizer compound 7 on day 12 of the growth cycle. But he also says to check soil moisture levels every day and adjust the timing if needed. So how do we know what adjustments to make? He does not explain how he knew when to change the timing. He just says, use judgment based on plant response. Melkoth stared at the page. It seemed so simple when Wei Jun had explained it. He had made it look easy. But now they were learning that simple and easy were not the same thing. In the council chambers, the crystal walls that had once been beautiful were starting to crack. The climate control systems that kept dozens of different alien species comfortable in the same room were failing. Engineer Chan Wu had designed these systems, and he had been dismissed as unnecessarily concerned with alien comfort. Maintenance Chief Bronkalar was trying to fix the environmental controls for the 100th time. He was a silicon collective, being made of living rock with crystal formations for hands. He should have been able to understand mechanical systems better than any soft-bodied organic being. The air mixture is wrong again, reported his assistant. The void swimmers cannot breathe, and the crystalline representatives are overheating. I know, Bronkalar said, his crystal eyes flashing with frustration. I have checked the humans' designs 1,000 times. The system should work. But every time I fix one thing, something else breaks. Maybe we should contact the humans, suggested his assistant. The Council has forbidden any contact with human territories, Bronkalar replied. They say it would show weakness. So the meetings continued in rooms that were too hot for some species and too cold for others. with air that was too thick for some and too thin for others. Council members started attending meetings in environmental suits, which made communication even harder. The transportation crisis was the worst of all. Without human cargo services, goods were not moving between systems. The big alien freighters could handle large shipments between major worlds, but they could not service the small colonies and remote outposts that humans had always taken care of. On Frontier Station, Supply Officer Katharina was looking at empty storage rooms that should have been full of food, medicine, and other necessities. The station was home to 50,000 aliens who worked in the dangerous asteroid mining fields. "When is the next supply run?" asked Miner Vextall, a void swimmer whose tentacles were thin from not eating enough. "The Council Shipping Authority says it will be at least 4 more months, Katharina replied. "The big freighters cannot dock at our small ports, and there are no smaller ships available." 4 months? Vextall's tentacles went white with shock. "We will run out of food in 2 months, medicine in 3 weeks. "I know," Katharina said. "I have sent emergency requests to the Council every day for 6 months. They keep saying that alternative transportation will be found soon. But no alternative was found. The big shipping companies did not want to build smaller ships. It was not profitable. They had always depended on humans to handle the small, difficult, low-profit routes. Merchant Jeho had warned them this would happen. He had tried to explain that transportation was like a web. If you removed the small connections, the whole system would fall apart. The Council had called his concerns typical human worrying about unimportant details. Now those unimportant details were killing people. The communication networks were failing too. Humans had built the translation systems that let different alien species talk to each other. Without human maintenance, the systems were getting confused. Words were being mistranslated. Important messages were being lost or scrambled. Cultural. Minister Zythara was trying to moderate a trade dispute between the Zephyrians and the crystalline hegemony, but the translation system kept changing peaceful negotiation into military challenge and trade agreement into surrender terms. "This is impossible," said the Zephyrian representative, Keltoth. His feathers were bright red with anger. "They are insulting us on purpose." "We are not," replied the crystalline representative, Zix Mora. Her crystal body was glowing hot with rage. "Your translator is changing our words to make us sound arrogant." "Both translators are broken," Zythara said tiredly. "All the translators are broken. We need to get human technicians to fix them." "Humans no longer work in council space," Keltoth reminded her, "and the council has forbidden us from asking for their help." So the meeting ended with both sides angry and confused, their trade dispute unsolved. It was happening all across the galaxy. Allies were becoming enemies because they could not understand each other. Friends were becoming strangers because their words were being twisted by broken machines. The Council's official position remained the same. Humans leaving was not a significant problem. They issued statements saying that temporary difficulties were expected, but that superior alien technology would soon replace all human systems with better alternatives. But in private, council members were starting to panic. Emergency meetings were held every day. Disaster reports poured in from across the galaxy. The aliens were learning that human primitive technology had actually been incredibly sophisticated, designed to work together in ways that seemed simple, but were actually very complex. Dr. Hygin's agricultural systems had not just grown food. They had managed soil chemistry, water cycles, weather patterns, and ecosystem balance in ways that took decades to understand fully. So Young's jump gates had not just moved ships between stars. They had managed power distribution, navigation, coordination, traffic control, and emergency services across hundreds of star systems. Minho's atmospheric processors had not just cleaned air. They had balanced the chemical needs of dozens of alien species, managed air pressure and humidity, filtered out pollutants, and even controlled the spread of airborne diseases. Captain Dongwu's patrol ships had not just fought pirates. They had provided rescue services, maintained navigation beacons, delivered emergency supplies, and served as communication relays for remote areas. All of these systems had been connected in ways that the aliens were only beginning to understand. Humans had built not just individual machines, but an entire civilization support network that had become invisible because it worked so. 5 years had passed since the humans left, and the galaxy was dying. Not all at once, but slowly, like a plant whose roots had been cut. The Council could no longer pretend that everything was fine. Counselor Meltarin of the Void Swimmers floated in his private chamber, staring at maps of the galaxy. His metal tentacles moved nervously as he studied the dark areas beyond the galactic rim, places where no Council ship had ever gone. That was where the humans had gone. Out there, in the dark between galaxies where only the bravest or most desperate beings would dare to travel. "Sir," his aide entered the chamber. "The emergency session is ready to begin." Meltarin sighed, a sound like wind through empty corridors. "Tell them I will be there soon." The emergency session was different from regular council meetings. It was smaller, more secret. Only 12 beings sat around the table, the most senior members of each major species. They had all sworn oaths not to speak about what was discussed here. "The situation is worse than we thought," reported Counselor Vextar. His scales had turned a pale gray color that meant deep worry. "Food production is down 60%. Transportation has collapsed in the outer rim. We have lost contact with 47 colonies. The infrastructure failures are spreading," added Thexani. "Every week, more systems break down. We cannot fix them fast enough." Senior Archivist Quindala of the Memory Keepers spoke next. She looked like a walking tree made of silver metal, with data crystals growing from her branches like strange fruit. "I have been studying the old records. The humans were involved in 93% of all major infrastructure projects over the past 50 years. "Impossible," said Counselor Brixtall of the Silicon Collective. "They were junior. Partners at best. Were they?" Quindala's crystals flashed. "Look at the records more carefully. In every major project, humans suggested the key innovations. Aliens refined them and took credit, but the original ideas came from human minds." The room fell silent. None of them wanted to admit what they were all thinking. "We need to find them," Meltarin said finally. We need to ask them to come back. The Council has forbidden any contact with human territories, Vextar protested. Then the Council will have to change its mind, Meltaran replied. Before there is no galaxy left to govern. It took 3 months to prepare the expedition. They could not use Council ships. That would make it an official mission, which the Council was not ready to authorize. Instead, Meltaran gathered volunteers from different species, beings who were willing to risk their careers and their lives to search for humanity. The ship they used was old but reliable, a long-range exploration vessel called the Seeker's Dream. Its crew was small, 12 beings from different species, all of them experts in their fields. Captain Nixara was a luminary navigator, one of the best in the galaxy. Her light was steady and bright as she calculated jump coordinates for places that were not on any map. Chief Engineer Kethilo was from the Silicon Collective, his rock-like body equipped with the best sensors they could find. If there were any human settlements out there, he would detect them. Dr. Zilnith was the expedition's xenobiologist, an expert on human culture and psychology. She was one of the few aliens who had actually tried to understand humans rather than just use them. Ka'itid. Journey beyond the galactic rim was terrifying. There were no stars to navigate by. No communication relays, no safe harbors if something went wrong. They traveled through dark space for months, following faint energy signatures and guessing at where humans might have gone. There, Captain, Nixara said, her light brightening with excitement. I am detecting artificial structures, large ones. On the view screen, they saw something impossible. It was a space station, but not like any station they had ever seen. It was huge, bigger than any structure in Council space, and it was beautiful, with curves and spirals that seemed to flow like living things. That is definitely human design, Dr. Zilnith said. But it is far more advanced than anything they had when they left Council space? Send a communication, Meltaran ordered. Tell them we come in peace. The response came quickly. A calm human voice spoke in perfect galactic standard. Unknown vessel, you are in Free Alliance space. Please state your purpose. Free Alliance? Whispered Kethilo. What is that? We are representatives of the Galactic Council, Meltaran said into the communicator. We wish to speak with human leaders about diplomatic matters. There was a pause. Then, you are cleared to dock at Bay 7. Please follow the guide beacons. Be advised that this station operates under Free Alliance law, not Council law. Their ship approached the docking bay. The aliens stared in amazement. The station was not just big. It was alive with activity. Ships came and went constantly, but they were not just human ships. There were vessels from dozens of species, many of which the Council members did not recognize. Are those Varl ships? Asked Dr. Zilnith, pointing at sleek vessels with distinctive wing configurations. The Varl were classified as a primitive species, Vextar said. The Council decided they were not ready for galactic civilization. Apparently the humans disagreed, Meltaran observed. They docked successfully and were met by a human delegation. The leader was a woman named Captain Seung Ho, wearing a uniform that was both familiar and strange. It looked like the old Earth. Defense uniforms, but with new insignia. "Welcome to Haven Station," Captain Shung-ho said with a polite smile. "I am Captain Shung-ho of the Free Alliance Defense Corps. How can we help you?" The council delegation exchanged glances. The human seemed genuinely friendly, but there was something different about her. She carried herself with quiet confidence, like someone who was completely comfortable in their own space. "We have come to discuss the possibility of renewed cooperation between humans and the Council," Mel Taryn said carefully. "I see," Captain Shung-ho nodded. "That is certainly something worth discussing. Would you like a tour of the station first? It might help you understand what we have been building out here." The tour was a revelation. Haven Station was not just a space station. It was a city. Millions of beings lived and worked there, representing dozens of species. But they were not all the major species from Council space. Many were smaller groups, species that the Council had ignored or rejected. "The Kretal delegation is in Conference Room C," Captain Shung-ho explained as they passed a group of small, fuzzy beings. "They are negotiating a trade agreement for their bioluminescent art, very popular in the outer systems." "The Council classified the Kretal as non-sentient," Dr. Zilneth said quietly. "The Council was wrong about many things," Captain Shung-ho replied without any anger in her voice. "We have learned that intelligence comes in many forms." They visited the agricultural section where advanced agriculturalist Kyung-soo was growing food in ways that seemed impossible. Plants grew in twisted spirals that reached toward artificial suns. The air smelled of flowers and fresh earth. "How is this possible?" asked engineer Keith Ilo. "The energy requirements alone should be enormous. We learned to work with nature, instead of against it," Kyung-soo explained. "These plants actually generate more energy than they consume. The excess powers other parts of the station. In the technology sector, they met Dr. Yunbi, who was working on projects that made Council technology look primitive. She was building machines that seemed to think for themselves, computers that learned and grew like living things." "This is impossible," Counselor Brickstall said, staring at a device that was assembling itself. "This level of artificial intelligence is beyond anything we have achieved." "It is not artificial intelligence," Dr. Yunbi corrected gently. "It is symbiotic intelligence. The machines work with biological components, human creativity combined with alien problem-solving abilities." "Alien abilities?" Meltaran asked. "What aliens?" Dr. Yunbi smiled and gestured to her assistants. One was a Varl, whose mental mathematics abilities were legendary. Another was a crystalline refugee who had been exiled from Council space for unorthodox thinking. A third was a species that none of the Council members recognized. "We have learned that every species has unique gifts," Dr. Yunbi explained. "When we combine them properly, we can accomplish things that no single species could do alone." The most shocking part of the tour was the defense section. Admiral Il-sung showed them weapons and shields that were far beyond anything in Council space. But these were not weapons of conquest. They were tools of protection. The Free Alliance, faces threats that the Council does not know about, Admiral Il-sung explained. Dark space is not empty. There are things out here that are very dangerous. We have had to become strong to survive. What kind of things? Asked Vextar nervously. Perhaps that is a conversation for another time, Il-sung said diplomatically. The important point is that we are no longer the same humans who left Council space 5 years ago. We have grown, we have changed, and we have found our true purpose. At the end of the tour, they sat in a conference room overlooking the stars. Captain Sung-ho served them refreshments from dozens of different worlds, foods and drinks that many of the Council members had never tasted before. You came here to ask us to return, Captain Sung-ho said. It was not a question. The galaxy is having difficulties, Meltarin admitted. Systems are failing. People are suffering. The Emergency Council session had been going for 37 days. It was the longest session in galactic history and the most painful. The truth about humanity was finally coming out, and it was breaking the hearts of every alien who heard. Its senior archivist Quindala stood at the center of the chamber, her silver branches heavy with data crystals. Each crystal contained evidence of what humans had really done during their 50 years in Council space. The evidence was overwhelming, and it painted a picture that made the Council members sick with shame. Project File 47291 Quindala announced, her voice echoing in the huge chamber. Agricultural development on New Harvest. Official records show that Zephyrian scientists developed new farming techniques that increased crop yields by 400%. She activated a holographic display that showed the real records. Actual records show that human scientist Wei Jun developed the techniques. Zephyrian Agricultural Minister Kelnath took credit and received the Innovation Prize. Wei Jun was listed as a field assistant. Kelnath, who was sitting in the audience, buried his face in his wing hands. His feathers had turned black with shame. Project File 23156, Quindala continued. Medical breakthrough on Nexus Prime. Official records show that Dr. Silwenda discovered the cure for crystalline bone disease. The hologram changed to show medical records, research notes, and communication logs. Actual records show that human Dr. Haye Jin developed the cure after 2 years of research. Dr. Silwenda added her name to the final paper and accepted the Council Medical Achievement Award. Dr. Haye Jin was thanked as a research contributor. Dr. Silwenda's crystal body had gone completely transparent, which was how crystallines showed extreme embarrassment. She had known the truth, but she had convinced herself that her contributions were more important than they really were. Project File 15087. Quindala's voice was getting sadder with each revelation. The Great Peace Accord between the Klaxons and the Void Swimmers. Official records show that Counselor Thexani negotiated the historic agreement that prevented a devastating war. The hologram showed communication records, travel logs, and secret meeting transcripts. Actual records show that human diplomat Yuri spent 8 months in secret negotiations with both sides. She developed the compromise, solutions, and convinced both species to accept them. Counselor Thexani signed the final document and accepted the Peace Prize. Yuri was not mentioned in any official records. Thexani's wings were shaking. She remembered that war. 1 billion beings would have died if it had started. She had taken credit for saving those lives, but the real hero had been a quiet human woman who never asked for recognition. The revelations went on for hours. Day after day, Quindala revealed the truth about project after project, innovation after innovation, crisis after crisis. In every case, the pattern was the same. Humans did the work, aliens took the credit. But worse than that was the realization of how it had been done. The humans had not been victims of a conspiracy. They had been willing participants in their own invisibility. Trade Administrator Velkoth presented his findings with shaking tentacles. He was a void swimmer who had spent the past year investigating economic records. Human merchant Sung Min single-handedly prevented 17 economic crashes, he reported. Each time he identified the problems early and quietly adjusted trade routes to stabilize markets. He made sure that the solutions appeared to come from local authorities so they would get credit for fixing the problems. Why? Asked Councillor Brixtall. Why would he hide his contributions? Because he knew that if aliens found out their economy depended on a human, they would reject his help, Velkoth replied. He chose to save the economy rather than claim credit for saving it. The room was silent except for the quiet sounds of aliens crying, clicking, humming, or making whatever noises their species made when they were deeply sad. Security Chief Bron Taxar presented his report next. He was a massive being who looked like a walking mountain with glowing crystals for eyes. Human Captain Wu Jin of Security Division prevented 43 wars during his 20-year career, not by fighting, but by providing intelligence and mediation services. The holographic display showed maps, patrol routes, and communication logs. In each case, Captain Wu Jin detected potential conflicts early. He would arrange for alien security forces to discover evidence of the problem. He provided them with solutions, but made sure they appeared to be alien ideas. 43 wars that never happened because a human was quietly watching over the galaxy. How many lives? Asked Councillor Meltarin quietly. Based on historical patterns, those wars would have killed approximately 2 billion beings, Bron Taxar replied. The number hit the chamber like a physical blow. 2 billion beings were alive because of one human's quiet vigilance, and none of them knew it. Dr. Nalthara of the Healers presented the most devastating report of all. Her light was so dim it was barely visible as she spoke about medical records. Human. Dr. Ji-hoon saved 4.7 billion lives during his 30-year career, she said. Her voice was barely a whisper. He developed vaccines, surgical techniques, and treatments for dozens of diseases. In every case, he made sure that alien doctors received credit for the innovations. She showed the records, papers published with alien names, awards given to alien researchers, credit assigned to alien medical institutions. Dr. Ji-hoon could have been the most famous doctor in galactic history. Instead, he chose to be forgotten as long as beings lived. But his own species never knew, said Thexani. Humans never knew how brilliant their own people were. That was intentional, Dr. Nalthara replied. Dr. Ji-hoon believed that if humans knew how advanced their medicine was, they might become arrogant like other species. He wanted to keep humanity humble and focused on helping others. The final report came from cultural keeper Zithara. She looked like a tree made of silver metal, but today her branches were drooping with sorrow. Linguist Bo Young created the translation matrices that allow us all to communicate, she announced. Without her work, this council could not function, but she programmed the system to hide her contributions. The display showed the complex linguistic algorithms that made interspecies communication possible. The translation system is designed to make each species feel that their own language contributions are the most important. It hides the fact that the entire system was created by human linguistic theory. So when we speak to each other, Meltaran said slowly, we are using human words, human concepts, human understanding of how minds work. Yes, Zithara replied. Every conversation in this chamber has been shaped by human insights into communication and psychology. They gave us the gift of understanding each other and then made sure we forgot where the gift came from. The chamber fell into a silence so deep it seemed to have weight. The aliens sat with the crushing realization that their entire civilization had been built on human foundations that they had not only ignored, but actively rejected. Why? Asked Counselor Vextar, his scales now pure white with shock. Why did they do this? Why did they help us so much while asking for so little? Quindala activated one final display. It was a message that Ambassador Taemin had recorded before leaving council space, but programmed to be delivered only if the truth about human contributions was ever revealed. Taemin's face appeared in the hologram, looking older and sadder than when he had left, but his eyes were kind. If you are seeing this message, he said, it means you have finally discovered what we did during our time with you. You are probably wondering why we hid our contributions, why we let you take credit for our work, why we left instead of demanding recognition. He paused, and his expression became gentle. We did it because we loved you. All of you. Every species. Every world. Every being in the galaxy. We saw your potential for greatness, and we wanted to help you achieve it. But you rejected our help when it came with human names attached. You could not accept that primitive humans might have something to teach you. So we learned to help you in secret. We learned to make our contributions invisible. The hologram showed images from across the galaxy, aliens working together, building great things, exploring new worlds, creating art and music and literature. We wanted you to succeed. We wanted you to be proud of your achievements. We knew that if you found out those achievements depended on human help, you would reject them and fail. So we chose to be forgotten. We chose to let you believe you had done it all yourselves, because your success was more important to us than our recognition. Taemin's expression became even sadder. But in the end, even that was not enough. You still saw us as inferior. You still treated us as servants rather than partners. And we realized that by hiding our contributions, we had made it impossible for true partnership to exist. We left because we loved you too much to keep lying to you. We left because we hoped that someday, when you were ready, we could meet again as equals. The message ended with Taemin's final words. We do not ask for your gratitude. We do not ask for your apology. We only ask that you remember. The greatest strength is not in dominating others, but in helping them become their best selves, even when they never know you were there. 10 years had passed since the humans left. 10 years since the galaxy had lost its guardian angels and only realized what they had lost when it was too late. The Galactic Council still met, but the Great Chamber felt like a tomb. The crystal, walls that had once sparkled with hope now seemed dull and lifeless. The empty platform where the human delegation used to stand had become a monument to failure, not the humans' failure, but the Council's. Counselor Vextar was the senior member. Now, his scales had turned permanently gray, the color of deep sorrow among his species. He stood at the center of the chamber, looking at the handful of delegates who still attended council sessions. 40% of council species had stopped sending representatives. Some because their governments had collapsed, others because they were too busy trying to survive to worry about galactic politics, a few because they had lost faith in the Council entirely. The Outer Rim colonies are requesting emergency food, supplies, reported Trade Administrator Cathilo. His rock-like body was cracked with stress lines. They are facing their third famine in 5 years. What can we send them? Asked Vextar. Nothing, Cathilo replied. Production is down 70% galaxy-wide. We barely have enough food for the core worlds. It was the same report they heard every month. Food shortages, transportation failures, communication breakdowns, systems failing faster than they could be repaired. The galaxy was slowly starving to death. On Nexus Prime, Dr. Silwenda sat in her laboratory, surrounded by the ghosts of her failures. She had spent 10 years trying to recreate human medical innovations. She had made some progress, but it was not enough. Not nearly enough. Doctor, her assistant entered the lab. The Zephyrian delegation is here about the bone rot outbreak. Silwenda sighed. The bone rot epidemic had killed over 1 million Zephyrians in the past year. Dr. Hygin's research could have prevented it, but Silwenda had never been able to make the humans' cure work properly. Tell them we are still working on it, she said. Doctor? Her assistant hesitated. They are offering to pay 1 billion credits for any working treatment. Any treatment at all. 1 billion credits. It was more money than Silwenda had ever seen. But money could not buy back the knowledge they had thrown away. Tell them I am sorry, she said quietly. Tell them we are all sorry. On Kepler Station, Maintenance Chief Bronkalar was fighting a losing battle against entropy. The atmospheric processors that Minho had built were breaking down, and Bronkalar could not fix them fast enough. Sir, his assistant reported. Section C has lost life support again. We need to evacuate another 10,000 residents. Bronkalar looked at the diagnostic readouts. The machines were dying, one by one, and when they died, people had to leave their homes. Kepler Station had once housed 2 million beings. Now fewer than 500,000 remained. How long until total atmospheric failure? He asked. At current rates, 18 months, his assistant replied. 18 months until the station became uninhabitable. 18 months until 2 million aliens would have to find new homes in a galaxy where safe places were becoming rare. In his private quarters. That night, Broncalar stared at a technical manual that Minho had written. The humans' instructions were clear and detailed, but somehow, Broncalar could never make them work the way Minho had. It was like trying to paint a masterpiece by following someone else's brushstrokes. The technique was there, but the soul was missing. On the edge of Council space, Captain Nixara was leading another search expedition. Every year, the Council sent ships to look for human settlements. They never found anything. The humans had vanished into dark space as completely as if they had never existed. "Any signals?" she asked her sensor operator. "Nothing," came the reply. "The same empty readings as always." But they were not really empty. Sometimes, Nixara thought she detected faint energy patterns that might have been human technology. But when she tried to follow them, they led to nothing but empty space and dead stars. She wondered if the humans were deliberately hiding from them. It would not be hard to do. Human sensor technology had always been more advanced than the Council realized. If humans wanted to stay hidden, they could probably stay hidden forever. The thought made her sad. The galaxy's children had grown up and moved away, and their parents were too proud to admit they missed them. Back on the Council homeworld, a special committee met every month to discuss the human situation. The committee was led by Dr. Zilneth, the xenobiologist who had studied human culture. She was one of the few aliens who truly understood what they had lost. "Any progress on the reconstruction efforts?" asked committee member Melkoth. "Some," Dr. Zilneth replied. "We have managed to restore basic atmospheric processing on 12 worlds. Food production is stable on 6 agricultural planets. The transportation network is functioning at about 30% of pre-Exodus capacity." "And how long until full restoration?" Dr. Zilneth was quiet for a long moment. "Never," she said finally. "We will never fully restore what we had. The humans did not just build machines. They built an entire philosophy of helping others. They created a culture of service that we do not understand and cannot replicate. But surely with time and effort?" "No," Dr. Zilneth interrupted. "I have studied human culture for 15 years. I understand how they think. What they built was not just technology. It was love made visible, and you cannot reverse engineer love." The committee sat in uncomfortable silence. They had all hoped that eventually, alien ingenuity would overcome the problems left by human departure. But after 10 years, it was clear that some things could not be replaced. On the anniversary of the human exodus, something unexpected happened. A message arrived at Council headquarters. It was addressed to the entire Council, but it carried no identification codes and no return address. The message was from Ambassador Tamin. His face appeared in the Council chamber, looking older than when he had left. His hair was completely white now, and his eyes carried the weight of years in dark space. But he was smiling. "Hello, old friends," he said. "I hope this message finds you well." The assembled Council members leaned forward eagerly. It was the first communication from humans in 10 years. I am sending this message on the 10th anniversary of our departure, Taemin continued, not to reopen old wounds, but to share some news that I hope will bring you comfort. The holographic display changed to show images of the human colonies beyond the galactic rim. What the council saw took their breath away. Vast cities floating in space, more beautiful than anything in council territory. Worlds that had been transformed into gardens where dozens of species lived in harmony. Ships that moved through space like living things, powered by technologies that seemed like magic. We have not been idle during our exile, Taemin said. We have grown, we have learned, and we have found new friends among species that the galaxy had forgotten or never knew existed. The images showed humans working alongside aliens that no council member had ever seen, beings of living energy, creatures that existed in multiple dimensions, species so advanced that they made the council races look primitive. We have become part of something wonderful, Taemin said. A community of beings who help each other not because they have to, but because they want to. A place where strength is measured by how much you give, not by how much you take. The images shifted to show human children playing with alien children. Human scientists working with alien researchers, human artists creating beauty alongside alien creators. But we have not forgotten you. Taemin's voice became softer. We know that you are struggling. We know that you are hurting. And we want you to know that we do not blame you for what happened between us. A schematic appeared on the display. Technical diagrams for atmospheric processors, agricultural systems, transportation networks, and communication relays. But these were not the same designs that humans had used in council space. These were better, much better. We are sending you these gifts, Taemin said, not because we want anything in return, but because we still care about you, because we remember the good times we shared, because we hope that someday, when you are ready, we can be friends again. These designs will help you rebuild what was lost. They are freely given, with no conditions. Use them as you see fit. Share them with anyone who needs them. Make them better if you can. Taemin's image smiled sadly. We know that you are proud beings. We know that it hurts your pride to accept help from those you once considered inferior, but please remember, accepting help is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of wisdom. We hope that these gifts will help you build a better galaxy, a galaxy where all beings can thrive. A galaxy where cooperation is valued more than competition, where kindness is seen as strength, where differences are celebrated rather than feared. The message began to fade, but Taemin's final words rang clearly through the chamber. We forgive you. We have always forgiven you, and we will always love you, no matter how far apart we may be. The hologram disappeared, leaving the council chamber in complete silence. For a long time, no one spoke. No one moved. They sat with the weight of unconditional love, freely given by beings they had rejected and cast out. Finally, Counselor Vexatar stood up. His voice was shaking as he spoke.